What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Marketing Nomad Show. It's your favorite marketer and podcaster. My name is Prit. Welcome to another episode of the Marketing Nomad Show. Today, I've got a very special guest with us, Babs Faseesin. Now, Babs is the author of Cracking the Life Code. Babs believes that ideas are powerful and are far more connected than they sometimes appear on the surface. Through his professional experience as a strategy consultant and extensive involvement in the community, he has seen tremendous value of diverse perspectives. He has a long history of creative and community work. He is committed to personal growth and development. He is the founder of Cracking the Life Code, which is basically a self-help platform that helps individuals gain total life mastery. He is the convener of Inspire Africa Tour. As an entrepreneur and strategy consultant, Babs has helped over 12,000 entrepreneurs start and grow their businesses. Babs is passionate about education, health, wellness, investing in human capital, affecting meaningful and lasting change, personal growth. Babs enjoys new things that challenge how he views the world. Babs, how are we doing today?
Hey, Pri, I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you on my show. I know that today we're going to be talking a little bit about how did your journey start? What did it feel for you to start over? How did you navigate the rough times? We're also going to be talking a little bit about your book as well, which is Cracking the Life Code. We're going to talk a little bit about life codes. Why is it important to crack them, as the title suggests? We're also going to be talking a little bit about how to define success and talking about pillars of purpose. So for those of you listening in, that's basically going to be a summary of what this entire episode is going to be about. So let's jump right in. Babs, where did your journey start?
Well, thank you so much, Preet, again for having me. And I like to talk about a beautiful story that inspired my journey. I was a young kid, probably preteen. I wasn't even a teenager yet when I ran into the room one day and found that my mother was crying. And that broke my spirit because it was sad to see my mom in that, state, emotional state. I asked her why she was crying. She told me she had received bad news from her mom, and she was crying even more so because she was not in a position to help her mother at the time. That broke my heart. And that day I made a decision that I'll do everything within my power to ensure that I find myself in situations and places in life where I'm able to provide help for everyone that I care about. And so my journey of personal growth and personal development started pretty early in life. And that was why I commenced this whole journey of wanting to know what exactly is out there. What there's got to be more to life than the life that I had at the time. And I was very curious to find out what exactly are those opportunities that exist outside of my immediate environment, because I was born and raised in Nigeria. But I wanted to do more for myself. I wanted opportunities for myself. I wanted growth. I wanted to expand my scope. And that was where this whole journey of my career, entrepreneurship, and public speaking, personal growth, that's where all of these started for me.
Oh, it's wonderful to hear that your journey started at such a young age. And I feel that the experiences that we have at, during those ages, so formative. And it's commendable to see how far you've come. You've helped over 12,000 entrepreneurs. When did you actually start your entrepreneurial journey?
So here's what happened. If you know anything at all about African parents, which I perceive from my experience has been maybe the case even in some Asian communities. If you know anything at all about African parents, there are only three professions. So there's medicine, there's law, and there's engineering. And if you're not in any one of these fields, you literally wasted your life. So in a family of three boys, you can naturally just select their profession for them. So of the three boys, I was set up to be the medical doctor. So of course I studied biochemistry with the intention of becoming a medical doctor. But in my final year in college, I realized that maybe there's something fantastic about business, because I read a book, an economics textbook, actually, nothing fancy, from a friend of mine who was studying economics at the time. And I began to take interest in the business world. So coming out of college, I had to break this news to my parents, saying to them, I'm so sorry, I would not be fulfilling this dream of becoming a doctor. Of course, you know how that type of conversation would go. Never, never the best types of conversations to have. And so my dad he was shocked, totally disappointed. And he told me, so he bet on my life, really. He literally told me that there's absolutely no future for me in the business world. And so I took that challenge up until this day. Everything I have done since then has been really motivated by that challenge, because I just want to prove to my dad that there is an opportunity outside of the four walls of the hospital.
Yeah.
And that's why I have continued to push myself. So to start off, because I didn't have any business background, I started my career in consulting. So I worked as a strategy consultant for the first 5 or 6 years of my career, and then transitioned further into advertising, worked in advertising, worked with some of the global advertising agencies around, doing strategy as well. And then I created Roots Consulting afterwards. I established Roots Consulting as a strategy and innovation consulting company. And through Roots Consulting, I have helped several entrepreneurs either design strategies, formulate business models, or do some business model reengineering. That just and I coupled that with telling my story. So as a public speaker and a trainer and coach, I've continued to narrate my story and tell my success and failure stories to entrepreneurs, to challenge them, just to help them see that there's always a world of opportunities that exist around us. We just gotta, tune in and tap into them.
Oh, it's so funny that you say this, Babs, because when you said either engineer, lawyer, or a doctor, I was like, yeah, this is definitely the same cultural,
Right.
thought process that goes on over here. And actually, my journey started off the same way too. I am an engineer by degree, but I pivoted, absolutely just switched into becoming a marketing strategy consultant myself too. So I think we've got similar
Awesome.
origin stories, and even I have extensively talked about how those are not the only three professions that are supposed to exist anymore. While yes, those professions, it's hard work getting those degrees, but there are other avenues, there are other opportunities out there. And it's so wonderful to see a fellow advocate for business and entrepreneurship. So that's absolutely wonderful. And we mentioned a little bit about your book. Tell us, how was the entire process of writing your book, and what were your thoughts going into writing the book? What was your aim for the book?
Well, thank you for that. Frankly speaking, I have been referred to as an introvert, and I perceive that I am an introvert. So I have a lot of thoughts, and most of my thoughts just sit in my head. And the only way that I get my thoughts out is by writing. And so since I want to say since the age of 8, I've been writing. I just write my thoughts down. And so after 20 years of intentional personal development journey, I thought the best thing I could leave the world with is a compilation of all of my journey and all of my lessons, so that I can hand this over to probably the next generation, because indeed, life does not come with a manual. So it's imperative to understand how to navigate life. When a child is born, you don't give the mother a manual. Say, hey, this is how this child, just give it to the child. He'll read it and, he'll navigate life. No.
Yeah.
So I thought after, experiencing the highs and the lows of life, after all the successes and the failures, I thought it was important for me to document all of those as a guide for anyone who might be looking to either transform their lives, their business, relationships, health or wellness, career, whatever it is. And that's why I put this, I condensed all these lessons into what is called Cracking the Life Code today. The writing process was interesting for me because I wrote in bits and pieces. And so every time I'll go back and just, put another note down when I learned something new, and I continued that way. But what helped me was, as we all know, we live in a very busy world. We rarely have time to sit and write a full book. But what happened was COVID. So when COVID hit the world and the entire world shut down, some of us moved from being on the plane 3-4 times a week to just being in pajamas 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So I thought
Absolutely.
that was a great opportunity. So I took that opportunity to write my book Cracking the Life Code, which is something I've always wanted to do, and some other books that I also started, but I published Cracking the Life Code with the intention to help anyone that lays their hands on it to find tips and strategies to navigate life better.
Oh, I really, every single sentence you just told me just now, I feel like I'm talking to myself because, it's such an amazing thing that 2 years of the pandemic, while it was brutal and it was really hard, and there was a lot of things going on in the world that we were probably very unexpected and just not prepared for. I think that the amount of time that it gave us for reflection, for figuring out what we want to actually do with our lives. Like so many people have actually switched over to entrepreneurship in the 2 years that have happened. So while it was painful, like those 2 years, I'm really glad that something good has come out of it. And your book released this year, if I'm not wrong. I did check it out on Amazon, and I'm going to put the link for you guys in the description box below. Do check it out. It's a big book. I think it was like 344 pages I saw, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of lessons. Yeah.
That's true.
So
I
congratulations on your book. I mean, I know that it released this year, and let's talk a little bit about what your book is about. So what are life codes? Because the name of your book is Cracking the Life Code. So what are life codes? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, we live in a tech world, and it's all about the codes and coding and all that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to play on the relevance of the times that we live in. And so I thought Cracking the Life Code might be a great title for this book. But essentially, life codes are habits, they are mindsets, and they are behaviors by which we live our lives. Every individual lives by a code. When a child is born, what happens is the child is born a clean slate, ready to be written upon by life. And now this child begins the journey of absorbing the signals that are within or around them. So from their parents to the immediate adults in their lives, to their teachers, to spiritual leaders, and everyone that surrounds this little child provide some type of signal, either by their words or their actions. And this is when the programming is done for the child. So every one of these signal is programming the child with either a mindset or a behavior that would ultimately become a habit further down the line. So as this child is being programmed by all of these signals that they are mopping up and receiving from the adults in their lives, they begin to form their own behaviors through these signals. Now, those are the codes that I'm referring to. So as we grow through our journey in life, we would come to a point in life where we'd say to ourselves, hey, it's about time to evaluate this mindset, these behaviors, and these habits, just to see if they're either helping me or they are harming me. That's when we do what I called in my book, the realistic self-assessment. And all we want to do is just look at those habits and those mindsets. Some mindsets are limiting beliefs, that I can't, well, wealth is not for me. That's a limiting belief. Women are not supposed to be in the corporate leadership. That's a limiting belief. Oh, well, I have kids, so I cannot succeed in business. That's a limiting belief. Oh, nobody in my family has ever been risen up to their heights, a certain height in their career. That's a limiting belief, and money is meant to be spent. That's spent only. That's a limiting belief. So there's so many subtle limiting beliefs that we carry through the course of our lives. And those beliefs, whether or not we like them, they actually either are helping us or harming us. So cracking the life code essentially says we need to crack those codes. We need to break those habits. We need to identify them first, break them, and then replace them with good, positive, and healthy habits and positive mindsets, so we can begin to live a more flourishing life and we can begin to build a more successful business. That's essentially the summary of cracking the life code.
Oh, that's so interesting that you put it that way. And I think that it also ties in with your life origin story, I guess, when you started out as a preteen, because that was a thought pattern that came into your life, and you started to embody that throughout your life. So I really like that your origin story kind of correlates to your book as well, that was a life code that you subconsciously picked up at that age when you were in your preteen, and then you've carried it out throughout your life. And so we talked a little bit about cracking, why is it important to crack them? But here's the thing. Sometimes we may not understand that there is a life code that is working against us. So how do we come to a point where we recognize that that life code is not working, or what's working for us, what's helping us propel in the business world?
That's an interesting question because I address that in so many ways in my book. One of the stories that I told in my book is about a young lady who, because of her experience with her father, she believed that there could not be a good man in the world because all men are bad, all men are violent, all men cheat, and all that. So that's a limiting belief that she had, but didn't realize it because it was just normal. It was her normal experience. So she watched her father all her life, and she just believed that that's how men operate. Now, she had trouble getting in a relationship and staying in a relationship because of this mindset. But when she went off to college, she met a colleague, a classmate in college, a friend of hers, who, when she visited the family of her friend, she saw something completely different in her friend's father. She saw the way that her friend's father, interacted with the family, interacted with the mother, and she realized that indeed, maybe some men could be different. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is sometimes we do not see ourselves for who we are. We need an external factor or someone else to help us see these limiting beliefs or these mindsets. In the case of this lady, by let's say her name is Jenny, just for privacy for now. So Jenny essentially realized that she had been self-sabotaging this whole time, but didn't know why until she realized this. She met this friend of hers. So talking about how do we identify or how do we even know that there are limiting beliefs, a few ways to do this is to actually do a realistic self-assessment. This is why this book is very big. It's because I did an entire question, a workbook session in the back of the book, because I essentially don't only want the readers to read, I want them to also reflect on what they're reading. So when we reflect on our lives, very often what I've seen is we focus on everything else but ourselves as individuals. So we spend time on work, we spend time with family, with friends, but we spend less time with ourselves, learning ourselves, finding what our weaknesses are, just analyzing ourselves. So what we need to do as a habit is to do what I call realistic self-assessment. I do it once every year. I mean, at a larger scale, but then I would also do it in an abridged version every quarter. But we should at least spend some time with ourselves to do a realistic self-assessment and ask ourselves, why didn't I get that job? Why didn't I follow through with that opportunity? What prevented me from making that investment? When you begin to dig into these questions, you might find that there's a thread of thoughts or a thread of a mindset that continues to just show up at a defining moment when you're supposed to make a decision. That's one way. The other way is to maybe hire a coach, hire a life coach, hire maybe a life coach, a therapist, but whoever, find a mentor who is very vast in the space that you're in. They might be able to see what you don't see in yourself, and they might be able to point out some of these behaviors. So these are three different ways that we can do it. You can do it as an individual by being realistic. You can do it through hiring a coach who can help you see what you're not seeing. You can find a mentor who might help you. Or lastly, you might just find yourself the best set of friends or circle that would tell you the honest truth about yourself.
I think the important key that you just mentioned is honest truth. And you also said realistic view of yourself. And I think that's so important. I think those are very key words, because oftentimes when we are evaluating ourselves, we're either overly critical or we're just too lax. And having that balance between the two of them, having a realistic view, I think is a really good suggestion by you. So thank you for that, Babs. And one of the things, if I understand correctly, when you crack the life code, you achieve success in that field, whether it's with your friend in terms of her relationships. If she cracked the life code of unlearning that thought process, unlearning that thought pattern, the behavioral pattern, and then she ends up in a successful relationship. So how do you define success?
That's a great question. I get this question very often, especially because success these days might mean different things to different individuals. Yes. I like to start by saying success is inherently personal. And so every individual would have to define success for themselves. I personally define success by three things. Essentially, it's purpose, it's meaning, and it's fulfillment. So if I'm able to identify my purpose in life and fulfill that purpose, I'm halfway through success. If I'm able to find fulfillment in what I do, I am halfway through success. And if I'm able to live a more meaningful life where I'm contributing to the community, I'm contributing to the world around me and making the world a better place, I have achieved success. So success for me essentially is wrapped up in these three words: is finding my purpose, is living a more meaningful life, and finding fulfillment.
Oh, that's amazing. And talk a little bit about what you said when you mentioned pillars of purpose. Let's talk a little bit more about that before we wrap this entire episode up.
Well, I talked extensively in my book about the pillars of purpose. So it's one thing to know where you're going, but then it's another thing to know how to get there. These pillars essentially help us achieve purpose. And one of them is platform. So you need a platform to showcase your talent, your skills, your business, whatever it is. Every individual that seeks to fulfill a certain purpose, whether you're seeking to be an entrepreneur, you're seeking to advance in your career, you would always need a platform to showcase whatever it is that is within you. Now, it does not make much sense or value to anyone if you're so rich within your brain and your mind, but nobody knows about it and the impact is not felt anywhere. So what I often say is that purpose is totally when you have purpose, but the purpose is invisible, then impact is completely limited. So when purpose is invisible, impact is limited. So what you want to do is to ensure that your purpose is visible so you can have a lot more impact around the people around you or the world. The other thing, or the other P or pillar of purpose, is people. See, people are the feelers in the pothole of the highway to success. So if you're, let's imagine success is a highway and you're driving on this highway, there are always potholes. Now, people help you fill those potholes. And that's why we need to surround ourselves with people who would give us the support that we need. So for an entrepreneur, you need customers. For an individual, you need relationships. You need people who are honest and who would continue to support you in all that you do as you seek to achieve your purpose. So everyone needs someone. There is nobody who I think should be an island of their own. So yeah, we have people. We also have place. So there is the place pillar. I believe very strongly that every purpose is designed for a place, be it a physical place or a mental place. I think essentially, if you pick a fish, if you observe a fish in water, it's so magnificent. You watch a fish swim in water, it's so beautiful. Pick the same fish and drop the fish on the soil, that same fish becomes an object of pity. The same fish will struggle. So what has happened is there's a change in place. So the fish is essentially supposed to flourish in water. And so if you are a tech guru and you're supposed to flourish in a tech environment, you don't want to find yourself in a rural environment where there's no light, electricity, there is no power, there's no technology. That's not the place for you. So what you want to do is, and the same thing for businesses, you cannot be targeting affluent individuals and set your business up in a remote place where the people that you're targeting aren't quite there. And the same thing, even if we're doing this digitally, what you want to do is you want to make sure that the people who need your product get to see your product. So purpose is very, very, very critical. These are just a few of the pillars of purpose.
Oh, that is wonderful. That is so true when you say, I mean, it's something that has probably been one of the biggest truths of my life, is that the place is very important, especially when you are trying to be having a good life, yes, being successful in your business, and also having good personal relationships. The place that you are in, it always has to align with like the other pillars of purpose that you said. So I really liked this entire podcast episode. Babs, thank you so much for joining us. Do you have any last words for my audience?
Well, thank you so much for having me. Honestly, the last word is, as we continue this journey of becoming better, I just want to encourage you all to focus on getting 1% better each day. If we look at the entire goal, the entire vision, it can be overwhelming. But if you break it down to what can I do today to get me 1% closer to my destination, that's much easier. So let's do it 1% better each day.
Oh, that's awesome. That's such good parting advice. And if my audience wants to look for you, where can they find you?
They would find me on my website, crackingthelifecode.com. Also on social media at Babs Faseesin.
Okay, that's awesome, guys. I'm also going to put the links in the description box below. So feel free to check that out. Reach out to Babs. Tell him one thing that you liked about today's podcast episode. Other than that, that wraps up today's podcast episode for you. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for listening all the way up until here. I will catch you in my next episode. Bye-bye, guys.